Hey, what's up? Here's a good book. I actually got this last year, but this is really, really good. There's a second book of this out. It's actually a review of the second book is what made me look for this one. Not familiar with the author, but they got a lot of people. Joe Bob, Tom Holland, the Stuart Gordon when he was, I guess, when he was around, giving accolades to this book, and it's just a book of interviews. Larry Fessenden does the intro, so I like Larry. He's all right for an old-fashioned liberal. I'll get into that stuff anyway. There's a lot of composers in here. I kind of just focusing on the ones that I like, but there's one here that's kind of like in between. Obviously, you got Carpenter, always a great interview. Fabio Frizzi, Maurizio Guarini, right? The guy who worked with Goblin, actually did all the keyboards after Claudio left. He actually did like Contamination, Blue Omega, did a bunch of the really, really, in my opinion, really good synth songs. He did that. Of course, Alan Howarth, right, the Carpenter collaborator. A few here, but go here. This Simon Boswell is interesting. Obviously, Mr. Boswell is an Englishman. He actually produced the goth acts. I'm not sure which ones, but he was in the music industry, and he started doing the music kind of like mid to later 80s for the Italian stuff. Demons, Phenomenon, right? Did the Richard Stanley films, Hardware, Dust Devil, and the Clive Barker stuff. Right? So it's interesting, you get the interviews here. Right, he was a goth band called Sex Gang Children. I guess I don't know them, but it's just an interesting interview with this guy. Apparently, Demons 2, which I haven't seen in a while. They got the Smith song Panic, right? The one that you see in Shaun of the Dead. Well, apparently, he got the permission from the man Amaz himself to get I like this. I know that Morrissey, right, the Smiths lead singer, was a very kind of difficult person, especially when it came to this sort of trash culture. He'd like to think of himself as quite intellectual. So I wrote Morrissey a letter. I'm not going to do that accent. Explaining to him that Demons 2 is this extended metaphor for the media taking over people's minds. Right? They come out of television in Demons 2. That's right. I thought that was funny. He got the letter and said, yeah, great. Yeah, mate. Fucking Morrissey. Guy is so difficult and serious, but his lyrics are hilarious. Anyway. And then he goes, of course, he does the Richard Stanley films. Crazy. Very underrated filmmaker, Richard Stanley. Of course, check out Arkham Reporter's interview with him, right? And these guys are all of the age where when MIDI comes out, remember, these guys are composing, bands and stuff like that. When MIDI comes out, and they can start using computers and the keyboards, you don't have to spend time tuning them, programming them with an actual engineer from the company. They really start to take off and like it. So of course we'll go to of course Mr. Carpenter's great interview, right? Very modest guy in terms of, he has a musical background, but he's always like, I'm a journeyman. I do what is necessary for the movie. I don't really think of it as music other than to support the image, right? A lot of people discount my scores as being very simple, and they are very simple. I'm a musician of only moderate chops. I am not a virtuoso in any respect whatsoever, but within the area that I kind of gouged out, my own little area of expertise, right? He talks about using the old tube synths, right? At the the USC, was that University of California, right? Electronic music department. He taught a course in it. He owned his own synths. They were all tube synths, right? You had to tune them. I'd say, let's have a string sound. He'd go over and tune away, and we'd have it, and they'd play it. Right? It's interesting to see that. And like in the end, right? Like in the interview where he said that he gets a check every time a Halloween film comes out. He likes when he can do as little as possible and get paid. You said regarding the early scores, you were the fastest and cheapest guy to do it. So you did it. That's it. You guys. And it's funny too. He sounds very modest. He sounds like he's just in it for the money. But dude, Carpenter made some of the best movies ever, dude. Straight up. So, right, I have minimal chops as a musician. Right, my sons are better than me. Right, so I'm recognizing that as a strength. Of course, repetition. You will see the common thread in these interviews is the idea with horror, particularly repetition. Right. So we'll go over some. You got Fabio Frizzi, of course. Him and Goblin. When you think of Italian horror music, you think of these two guys, right? For the Apocalypse. Remember that? Anyway, we're talking about the music. And I want to go over very underrated guy, not mentioned a lot. Maurizio Guarini, right? When you think of Goblin, he wasn't on Profondo Rosso, right? He wasn't on Deep Red, right? He did work on Suspiria. He worked on Roller, right? I don't know if any of you are familiar with Goblin's album Roller. It's really, really good prog rock. It's not a soundtrack, right? He rejoined Goblin after Claudio Simonetti left, right? And they did like when you think of like Contamination, like that, Blue Omega, or there you go, that film. That Quiet Drops is really nice. He did that. When you think of Goblin, you think of Claudio, but I think Maurizio deserves some credit too. So, and it's pretty much. Let's see, we get someone else. Alan Howarth. Alan Howarth's interesting. Of course, he worked with Carpenter. Worked on a lot of soundtracks. Of course, Halloween 3, dude. The vinyl rip for Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is such a great. If you listen to it, if you're into soundtrack music, Howard is literally almost an engineer. Okay, he was the guy programming a lot of stuff later for Carpenter, but he's a musician in his own right. He had a band. He played rock and roll just like Carpenter did in his own band. Also, Alan makes a good point. He considers sound effects and Foley music. He considers it that. So, and that really is once you start getting sampling and whatnot going on, it goes really well, right? And he goes, score I like last Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, right? Of course, the bands and Always in the Wings and the Shadows is Tangerine Dream, German band. Well, the Austrian, I think the German. Of course, Morricone, right? Always mention Morricone. All right, here he goes. It's the first time we realized the power of MIDI, musical instrument digital interface. You can push one note on one keyboard and fire like 9 of them at the same time. The restriction of 24-track tape recording was eclipsed because MIDI was a multiplier. If it had 9 keyboards per pass, multiplied by 20 tracks, you got 180 instruments. Yeah, see? Very interesting. So, nice book. Recommended. Of course, you get the other thing here. You get the orchestral guys like Harry Manfredini, the guy who did Friday the 13th. And they mentioned, of course, Wagner. Bernard Herrmann actually is mentioned a lot. Of course, Christoph Penderecki, one of the, you get the avant-garde, right? Yeah, and there's no money for music. It was like 13 players in a basement in New Jersey, right? So, and then when you start getting, they love the tech, the orchestron, right? When you start getting keyboards, or you can start playing stuff like that. All right, and of course, the other name you always hear with these is Tubular Bells, right? The Exorcist. Of course, that was a song before. So, and there's that guy Bernard Herrmann. It comes up a lot with horror music. So, like I said, these are the composers. Okay, they're still, though, even with the orchestral backgrounds, the simple and the repetitive is what really strikes people in not just horror music, but any kind of music. Pop music. Of course, we prefer darker music. And of course, and here's Claudio Simonetti. So Claudio is great, man. You mentioned Goblin. Goblin, I don't have to mention. I really don't have to mention them. They're legends. Okay. And always interesting when he left the band. He became a big disco guy. If you know Italo disco, like Italians make some of the best disco. There was, it's funny. Like I keep saying, you look at a song they used to play in New York radio, and the brothers will be like, "Wait, those guys were white," and then you see that they're all Italian. They're Italian. I just thought it was funny. And yeah, he did the lullaby right for the Suspiria. I keep saying Suspiria is like a proto black metal song. People will argue with me over that, I'm sure, but yeah. Right, we started doing dance music, Italian dance music, Italo disco. I'm like the only guy that likes black metal and disco. I guarantee you that. So, and what now? Of course, the best keyboards and the best plugins, computers. Now you can do anything. Yeah, I need a big orchestra. I don't have a big budget. I record with the small orchestra and play over it with orchestral plugins. Now it is easy and cheaper. I can record an entire soundtrack in my house. I mean, most of these guys are going back to the 60s and 70s. So, anyway, good book. There's a part 2. I just went over the guys that that I liked. These other guys I'm sure are great, but it's part 2. So check it out. Really, really good book.